Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast. I'm John Romero of the Washington Post. It is week 3 of the fantasy football season, and hopefully for most of you it's going great. For those of you it isn't, I am here to help. You can shoot me a line or follow me on Twitter at John_J_Romero. And you can check out my cheat sheet. Comes out every Friday morning during the NFL regular season on WashingtonPost.com. How'd I do last week? Well, I advised owners of Chris Hogan to stay the course. He didn't look good for most of the game, but he did get 2 TDs late to make it all worth your while. I also said that Royce Freeman would probably get about 60 yards and a TD, that he was going to be serviceable. He got a little shy of that, 30 yards and a TD, but he was serviceable for those that used him. And lastly, my long shot tight end last week, Will Dissly, came through with 40 yards and a touchdown. So what do I like this week? Well, let's take a look. First up is Larry Fitzgerald of the Arizona Cardinals. This guy's been a fantasy stalwart for years at wide receiver, but maybe it's finally that time. I hope not. I have him in a couple of leagues. Fitzgerald opened the season fine, 7 catches, 70-plus yards. Faced the Rams secondary last week, also injured his hammy, so he was held out the fourth quarter. He could play this weekend, but I'm not optimistic. The Arizona quarterback situation is just not good. I mean, David Johnson owners are also seeing a huge decline so far in his production. And I think Johnson's probably going to be the focal point, obviously, and they're going to try to get him going, which means Fitzgerald's game probably is going to suffer at least for a couple more weeks, and until they get somebody who can, get that ball downfield to him. So, if you got Fitzgerald, look for some alternative options for week 3. Moving on to a couple lottery tickets I really like this weekend. The first one is actually good for the short term and maybe season long, can be a producer on your squad, and that's John Brown of the Ravens. He was previously with the Arizona Cardinals, had a couple of nice seasons where he was fantasy relevant most weeks, but last year Arizona's offense kind of hit the tank. He has moved on to the East Coast, and now with Baltimore, Brown has seemingly emerged as kind of their vertical threat and kind of go-to guy. He had 10 targets in week 2, 92 yards. He's found the end zone twice. He faces a Denver secondary not quite as good as it's been in the past. And he could be a nice long-term addition to your squad, at least depth purposes, filling in for a bye. I think he's going to have a nice weekend, and I think he could have a nice season. He's available in about 55% of leagues from the research I've done. Now, the other guy I like this weekend is Clement of the Philadelphia Eagles. Their backfield's a little bit banged up with Darren Sproles was inactive last week, which kind of paved the way to Clement having a nice all-around game. Now, Jay Ajayi is not looking good for week 3. He could play, but even if he does, Clement has a chance to be a factor. Definitely going to be involved in the passing game, and he makes the most of his touches. He faces the Colts defense that gave up almost 100 yards to Joe Mixon in week 1. They played better in week 2, but Clement should have an opportunity to thrive, especially if he gets the additional touches in Ajayi's absence. You might want to add him for handcuff purposes, or just a guy who could end up, taking over some more playing time in the Philadelphia backfield. That's going to do it for us on this week's edition of Fantasy Forecast. I'm John Romero of the Washington Post. We'll be back in week 4 to do this all over again. So have a good weekend and good luck to you all.